I'd like to welcome everybody to our Sunday night call. It's always fun to get together and learn about important topics in our sport. Tonight we'll be listening from Coach Bo about most common injuries in triathlon and how we treat them. I'm also just going to drop a link into our NVDM Coaching blog into the chat. We're trying to always create good content for those of you that are really interested about how to stay current and more information about some important topics. You can always find some good articles there to read and share in your communities. So with that being said, pitch it on over to Bo and we'll get started.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me, man. So, all right. So today we're going to talk about the most common injuries in triathlon and how we treat them. So this is, I'm one of the newer coaches here. I'm a physical therapist. I founded MoveRx Physical Therapy about 5 years ago. I'm one of the newer coaches here at NVDM. So if I can, I'll just tell you a little bit more about me. So this is me. I've been married to my wife, Melissa, for almost 7 years now. We work with as a company, we work with a local animal shelter called Acadian Animal Aid. And we've fostered a bunch of dogs over the last 5 years. And then finally, we had a foster fail. So this is Tabby. She's our foster fail, if you will, our adopted dog. She's our clinic dog. We love her to death. So some people call her emotional support dog, depending on what they got going on. And then we have, I do all the other millennial stuff. You know, I do triathlons like a lot of you, ultra running. I smoke meats at Big Sourdough, and I play in a rock band. So that's like a little bit about me. So this presentation is going to come with a bit of a disclaimer. So we're going to assume that all things are equal here, right? And that the conditions that we're discussing are what they are. So most injuries that we see in the clinic here are the results of improper mechanics over a long period of time. So unless there's like a traumatic onset, like you fall up a ladder, get hit by a car, God forbid, something like that, most of the injuries that we see are because of improper mechanics over a long period of time. And with that comes weakness in muscles, joint dysfunctions, nerve irritations. There's a lot, you know. As PTs, we take a comprehensive view of all these things that could be contributing to these issues. So neck, back, hips. If you've been on a call recently, you've heard my rant about plantar fasciitis. We look up the chain. We're always trying to figure out exactly what is going on, right? My goal today isn't to make you guys experts in differential diagnosis. It's to help educate on common conditions. Humans are very dynamic. We have a lot going on. We do a really cool sport with a lot of variables. If you're newer to the sport, you know how many things there are to learn when you're first starting, right? Your body is the same way. There's a lot of stuff going on. And to quote the great poet Obi-Wan Kenobi, only sit still in absolutes. So there are no absolutes in this world. We have to make sure that we're taking everything into account. But we're looking at these conditions specifically, and we're looking at what is and how we treat them, how we go through them, right? So let's get into it. So we'll break down the injuries in triathlon. So Swedenberger, I believe I probably butchered that name, but they did what's called an epidemiological study of injuries in triathlons, right? So basically what injuries, what epidemiologies, what pathologies, what injuries occur in triathlon. And what they found was that 50% of injuries occur during the running portion, 43% from cycling, and 7% during the swim. 50% running injuries should come as a surprise to no one, because raise your hand if you've had a running injury or injury that's from running, right? Like most of us, right? So definitely should not come as a surprise to any of us. We also have multi-sport considerations. So whenever we're treating triathletes, we have to take into account the cumulative load over all three disciplines, right? An injury that is symptomatic or painful during one sport may be exacerbated or made worse by the other sports, right? So if your seat is too low and you are getting too much knee bend at the 6 o'clock position in your cycle stroke, in your pedal stroke, it's going to irritate your patellar tendon. Then you go ahead and you start running 26 miles on that. You can see where that could kind of cascade, right? So it's also important for us to talk about the other things that could be considered with the multi-sport. So a bike fit. I believe it was Coach Nate a few weeks ago who talked about how bike fitting is one of the best things you can do for your performance. I would also say that bike fitting is one of the best things you can do for your injury prevention, because it's important to look at that, especially if you have knee and lower leg complaints. Because if you look at cycling at an average of 80 RPMs, then you're putting 4,800 revolutions per hour. You extend that over 2, 3, 6 hours. That's a lot of revolutions. It's a lot of wear and tear. So you want to be in as good of a spot as possible to make sure that you can be effective and have less strain on your body, right? The other thing that I would recommend is a professional running analysis. So we see things in the clinic like overstriding, knee valgus, where basically your knee like shifts in whenever you take a step, hip drops side to side when you're running, also called a Trendelenburg gait pattern. It's good to get those addressed because when you're running, you put 2.5 to 5 times your body weight per foot per step, and up to 8 times your body weight when you're going downhill, right? So if your knee shears every time you take a step and you put 2.5 times your body weight through a knee that shears, right? Not great. You're not going to have a good time, right? So it's good to take all those things into account. Make sure you're getting with some professionals and you're talking through a lot of these things, right? Also, on our end as coaches, it's our job to manage your training load. So particularly in the running phase where most injuries occur, it's essential for your prevention and rehabilitation. So when you're coming in, you're doing your onboarding, make sure you talk to your coaches about that. If you're in a block, you start to feel some of the symptoms that we're talking about here, make sure you talk to your coaches about it. Let's get ahead of the game. Let's build that into your training plan because that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that you guys stay in the sport, you stay going, and that you stay consistent, right? So the number one injury in triathlon, again, should come as no surprise to any of us, is tendinopathies or overuse injuries. So tendinopathies are the most common injuries in sport. The most common affected sites are the knee, the lower leg and Achilles, and the shoulder, right? Those are the 3 things that we see mostly, and that's a tendinopathy. So I'm saying tendinopathy, and you're like, okay, well, what's a tendonitis? What's a tendinopathy? What's the difference? So looking at this chart here, the long-held model was that there was a tendonitis. They called it like a patellar tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis, whatever, right? So the long-held belief for a long time was that basically there was an itis. Itis, the suffix itis is inflammation. So an inflammation of the tendon, right? So the dominant pathology here, the main cause was acute inflammation, right? So what would they do? They would give you corticosteroids, NSAIDs, basically anti-inflammatory medications, right? Then the primary way to treat a tendonitis was rest and anti-inflammatories, right? So you can imagine if you look at someone's knee and it's blown up, you're like, oh, man, you can't bend it, you can't put weight on it. Like, okay, yeah, rest that thing, get some anti-inflammatories. That would make sense, right? But your prognosis, so basically like your long-term response to this injury was kind of self-limited. So you take some Advil, you ice it, and you pray, I guess, that it doesn't come back, right? Like that's basically how you would treat a tendonitis, right? And that's why so many athletes had these kind of up and down. They'd build mileage, they'd have a tendonitis, they'd have to rest it, build mileage, tendonitis. Like they would just have, I got this thing, it just keeps coming back, right? So in 2013, the British Medical Journal actually was like, this is kind of crazy. Why do people keep having these tendonitis? Why do some people get them? Why do some people not? What's going on here? So they did a deep study on the pathology of a tendonitis. And what they found was that tendons actually don't have a ton of blood flow to them, right? So that's a good thing because that means that there's not a whole lot of swelling that can be there. If you look at someone who has like tennis elbow or like a patellar tendonitis, like a lot of times their knee isn't like blown up like a balloon, right? It's like, it kind of hurts, right? Like I feel pain when I load it and stuff like this, right? And what they found was that actually in a tendonitis, the dominant pathology was failed healing, collagen degeneration, and neurovascularization, which is all fancy ways of saying that the load you put on your tendon exceeded the capacity of that tendon, right? So it's instead of saying an inflammation of the tendon, they changed it to a pathology of the tendon, right? So it's kind of like a gas pump, right? So you're filling up your gas tank, right? The gas filled up in the tanks, then it hits the pump handle and it pops it, right? But if you like to do what I do and you like to hit that even dollar number when you're filling up your car, maybe not now, gas price is pretty high, but you keep boom, boom, boom. And then eventually if you pull too much, it pours over onto the side of your car, right? Am I the only psycho who does that? Or you all do that? Okay, good. Right. So that's basically what you're doing. You're exceeding the capacity of, Alex, thanks, man. You're exceeding the capacity of that tendon, just like you exceed the capacity of that gas tank, right? So what they found was that NSAIDs and corticosteroids, basically anti-inflammatories, have very limited role. They have very little long-term benefit. And actually, with getting repeated steroid injections in your knees, in your ankles, whatever, your shoulders, it can actually decrease or degrade the quality, the structure of the tendon, right? So it can actually be long-term negative, right? So then the cornerstone therapy is progressive mechanical loading. So basically, if you exceed the capacity of that tendon, you need to build more capacity, right? And that makes sense if you think about it, right? It makes sense to our sport, right? So if you can bike 10 miles and you need to bike 112 miles in some distant future, right? You're not just going to go bike 112 miles, right? Some of y'all might. I'm not. Some of y'all might. Y'all are crazy. That's why we do this thing, right? But you build your capacity. You bike 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles. You build your capacity in sport. So why wouldn't you build your capacity in your tendons, right? So that makes more sense. So the prognosis is chronic and load dependent. So the good thing is that tendons don't have a lot of blood flow, so they can't have a lot of swelling. However, it does take a while for them to heal. So you do need a consistent chronic loading of and progressive loading of that joint. We're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like going forward, or of that tendon. We're going to talk about what that looks like going forward. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about those? Okay, cool. So the first thing that we see here is the swim. We're going to start, that's where we start in the sport. That's where we'll start here. So they actually found that using hand paddles increases your risk from about 10% of having rotator cuff tendinopathy. The use of hand paddles actually increases your risk from 10 to 24%. So pretty significant here. So we have to make sure that your tendons are prepared for the extra load that you put on them when you're using hand paddles or whenever you're cranking up your swim training, right? So at our clinic, we like to look at things in 3 levels, right? The first thing is the local level, so the tendon itself. Second part is the regional, so the shoulder, the scapular muscles, cervical spine, thoracic spine, all that stuff. Then we go to functional. Functional is like your swim drills, doing a swim analysis, like seeing what faults we see in your swim mechanics and giving you drills to fix it, right? So the local at the tendon is we look at isometrics, tempo, heavy eccentrics, and plyometrics. And so we'll kind of talk a little bit through those in a second here, but we basically just progress you through the process here to load the tendon and, like I said, build that capacity, right? Looking regionally, you have your cervical spine, like we talked about. So, you know, there's nerves that activate the rotator cuff muscle. You can have nerve irritation. That is definitely part of it. Shoulder mobility, not being able to reach overhead, having scapular weakness, so not able to get the shoulder blade to rotate upward as you're reaching overhead, right? Those are all things. Your thoracic spine might be limited, your mid back here. So then you can see you may not be able to rotate in the water here, so it puts more stress on your posterior delt and rotator cuff as you're coming back. There's all these things that we look at kind of functionally and regionally that can help support the tendon, right? And like I said, lastly, functionally, we look at swim drills, swim analysis, things like that to make sure that we're addressing the mechanics that you see in your swim. So excuse my appearance here. I was taking these pictures the other day, but so this is kind of what it looks like. So this first picture here is just simple isometrics. So we're just holding an externally rotated position. So that arm is coming out here. Typically with our isometrics, we look at more of like a 45-second hold and we rest 2 minutes. This is going to help. This should help your pain levels. You want to apply enough load into your arm that's consistent and it's under a 4 out of 10 pain. So 4 out of 10 is like mild, approaching moderate, right? That's a good load to put on your system. It's not going to cause any more injury and it's going to add more tissue resiliency, right? The next part here is a tempo. So we'll do like a 4-4-4. So 4 seconds down, hold 4 seconds, 4 seconds up, something like that, right? And we do like sets of 8 there. This is a heavy eccentric. So you'd see me on my side. I would use my other hand to bring it up into that up position, and then I would lower it down as slow as possible here. Same kind of thing, sets of 8 to 10. Just trying to really get some load into that shoulder with some weight. And then this last one here is some push-ups, and you can even get into plyo push-ups. So putting that plyometric force on that shoulder to where it can absorb that quick stretch, right? And as you can see, Tabby is very concerned at what I'm doing on the ground. If y'all can see her right there. So she is very concerned. I didn't realize that until I put them in. I was like, oh my God, look at her. She's crazy. Anyway, so I get distracted. I love my dog. She's so sweet. But, and then from there, we look regionally, right? So we have exercises to address your shoulder mobility. We have exercises here to address your scapular muscles, these two right here, right? So we get the mid and lower trap here. Here we get a little bit more of the serratus anterior, which is going to help to upwardly rotate that shoulder blade and give you more room to move around and not pinch on that rotator cuff. Melissa probably knows this one. Melissa Downs. We did this little weighted thoracic rotation. That's a really fun one. It's good for getting you more rotation in the water. We love that one. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to make a document, and I'm going to have links to all these videos. These are all videos from our YouTube channel. So I'll load those videos up for y'all so that y'all can, it is your favorite. And I'll load these up for y'all so y'all can have access to them and you can start implementing them into your plans, right? But basically we get the shoulder moving better, shoulder blade moving better, thoracic spine moving better, and then we stabilize the scapula, right? So you can kind of see the track that we go on here. Next thing, the bike and the run. We have patellar, so knee, and Achilles tendinopathies, right? Those are your biggest ones, right? So similar fashion here, we do plyometrics, all isometrics, all the way up to plyometrics, right? Then we look regionally. We look at the lumbar spine. We do a combined hip and knee targeted exercise plan for the patellar tendon. So a lot of times what we'll see when people have a knee injury, you may have heard of people having like runner's knee, jumper's knee, things like that, right? Patellar tendonitis, tendinopathies. A lot of times the patella tendon or the knee in general is the innocent bystander. A lot of times your patella or your knee is just the result of something else. So if you're having knee pain, a lot of times because you have hip weakness or hip mobility issues in some capacity, right? So like we talked about in one of the first slides, you have that knee valgus moment, where if you have weakness in your glutes, then your hip's going to shift and it's going to cause your knee to dive in, right? That's just going to shear on your knee over time. Your knee is just a hinge joint. It's just supposed to do this, right? That if you have a door in your house, the door is going to wear out more than the hinges do, right? Like if all it's got to do is this. Now, if one of your kids goes and hangs on the door and swings from it, it's gonna wear down a lot quicker, right? Your knee is very much the same. So we look at the hip, we look at the knee, because they are, in my mind, they pretty much go hand in hand, right? For the Achilles, we look at the hip as well, because obviously that controls everything down the chain. We also look at the ankle mobility, and we look at the foot strength. A lot of people have limited ankle mobility, right? You imagine you put your foot in a shoe, that shoe gets locked into a pedal for hours and hours and hours. You can imagine that's not good for your ankle mobility. So you have to make sure you have good ankle mobility. Also, a lot of people have a lot of weak feet. People have foot intrinsic weakness, and that's the first thing that hits the ground is your foot, right? So you have to make sure that your foot intrinsics are super strong, especially if you're in a big build, you're trying to go for a full Ironman, half Ironman, something like that. You want to make sure that your feet are very, very, very strong. And that all helps to support that Achilles tendon. And then again, lastly, functionally, we have bike fittings, gait analysis, all that stuff. We talked about that earlier, but those are all things to address on the functional side of things. So this is some patellar tendon stuff, right? So this would be your isometrics. With this, it's very cool because it's very controlled. So you just go down as low as you can here until you feel that 4 out of 10 pain or less. Then you hold that for 45 seconds. You rest 2 minutes, right? You can add some load to it and do the same thing, or you can go with that tempo. So you go 4 seconds down, hold 4 seconds, 4 seconds up, doing sets of 8 like that. We do heavy eccentrics here. So I got a barbell with some front squats here. So you just go down 1, 2, 3, 4, hold for a second to the bottom, come up normally, right? So that's a good way to really push. You could also do sissy squats. All that stuff is really, really good to get your tendons loaded. And then lastly, we have plyometrics like box jumps. And for the record, I did not jump on this box with bare feet. That is a staged photo. If you come from a CrossFit background, that will give you the frissons, as we say in Louisiana. It gives you the chills, right? Because you don't jump on wooden boxes barefoot. That would throw you off. But it's the illustrated point. Y'all get the idea of what a box jump is, right? So it's the plyometric side of it, really trying to get that last little bit of loading here. Sure. Then we move to the Achilles here. Oh, hey, Carrie, what's up?
Yeah, so I noticed in that last slide, you're up on a slant. I'm on my laptop, so I can't see that well, but like you're up on a slant there for those first 2 exercises, but then not for the eccentric load. What's the difference there?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get my knees over my toes a lot better on this slant here, and really load it. Changing the angle can help load it differently without having to put a lot of weight on it. The main thing for the heavy eccentrics is more of the load itself, like putting more load on it, right? As opposed to like putting the tendon at a disadvantageous position. I feel like you could do a lot more. I will sometimes do front squats with my heels elevated a little bit. I have decent ankle mobility, especially if someone doesn't have good ankle mobility, I'll elevate them. But if I have decent ankle mobility, I have like Gumby ankles, so I'll do it like this. But I'm not opposed to putting the heels elevated on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks.
For sure. Absolutely. Right. And then looking at the Achilles here, so we could do single leg, we could do double leg. You can go into weighted on that, kind of how we had the weighted scalpel squat here. You could do deficits, you could do box jumps, so for plyometrics, you can do the box jumps, you can do jump ropes, you can do all that stuff, just trying to load up that tendon along the way, right? Then looking regionally again, we have our banded hip stuff here. So we have some loaded banded hip work here. We have a posterior glide, which is pulling the hip back. We have a lateral glide here, which is pulling the hip out. And then we have hip airplanes, other things just to activate the hip and get that hip a lot stronger, right? Those are all really, really good things. For the Achilles here, this is a banded ankle mobility here. So you have a band around the ankle bones here. We push the knee forward. We get some bands here. We also have foot intrinsic work here. Just trying to build up that foot strength. All of these things are very, very good just to help build the patellar tendon, or help build everything around the patellar tendon and the Achilles tendon, right? In addition to that, we have ancillary services here. We have our dry needling, which may give some of y'all the free songs, like I said. We have our running analysis here. We have our bike fittings here. Those are all very, very good things to do just to help support everything we do. And then we load our patients up, right? In my opinion, and this might be a hot take, in my opinion, I don't think that physical therapists load their patients enough, right? So if you are doing banded external rotations for 12 weeks, and then you expect that person to go swim 2.4 miles, or you're doing like 5-pound ankle weights, and then you expect them to go run 26 miles and bike 112 miles, like that doesn't correlate. So that's the reason why we have so many overuse injuries. That's the reason why we have a lot of these tendonitis and tendinopathies. It's because I feel like, or recurring tendonitis and tendinopathies, because patients don't get loaded enough. We can't be afraid to load our people. They're strong, they're athletic. These guys are out here doing really cool stuff, and it's our job to help get them there. So we try to load our patients up and get them rolling and get them ready to go, right? And make sure that they're prepared. Again, we build that capacity so they can do what they have to do. So just a little plug for us. We'll be in Waco. My wife and I will both be in Waco. We're going to have clinic hours on the Friday and the Saturday prior to Waco 70.3. So I think Mike is going to be shooting out a scheduling page. So feel free to schedule a session and come on by. We'd love to like talk about stuff in more detail. If you guys have any injuries that you're dealing with, or if there's anything you want me to talk about, hopefully I haven't talked too much and Nick's kicking me out for good, but I hope that I'll be back. So if there's anything that you guys want to hear about, any injuries that y'all have suffered with, your athletes have suffered with, please let me know. I can give you some advice and then we can talk about it at a later date in more detail. But I'm available on the Slack DMs. There's my email there, Instagram, Facebook, personal and business. I respond to all of it. So anytime, if y'all need anything, please reach out. I love to talk to athletes. I love to talk about triathlons. I think it's great. So I'd love to help you guys out. Here are some of my references here of things that we used. And then does anyone have any questions? And I'll stay on after if that's cool, and I'll answer any questions that y'all have. Dude, crushed it. Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right.
Oh, I really want to thank you. Like, incredible resource here. Thank you for all the time you put into getting this presentation ready. Learned quite a bit. So really appreciate the time and just the offer to be such a resource for our team.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to do it. It's fun. This is, like I said, I love this stuff. I love talking about it. So it's great. Awesome.
We do have several coaches on the call, so if there are any questions about any of Bo's presentation or really anything else we can help with, we have a few extra minutes.
Yeah, Bo, sorry I'm not on camera. I'm traveling here, but the tendonitis, tendonopathy thing really struck home is, being prescribed so many times just anti-inflammatories by doctors for years, and then the next step is a cortisone shot, and then overuse, and then you step into surgery, So having someone like you to help us prescribe, get your eyes on it early on. It's just so easy to fall into these pitfalls. And I'm sure there's a few of us who've had surgeries and resulting things who've been in endurance sports over the years. So I always thought that tendinopathy was really hard to get rid of once you have it. And the only thing you could do is rest. And that doesn't always seem to be the cure. So I like that you have an emphasis towards loading. And I know this is like a subject that we could probably go all day on, but if there's any science on loading or new developments in the scientific community, it seems to be more prevalent now than it has in the past. And that's kind of what drew my curiosity. And, so yeah, I don't know if you have any comments on that, or if that's more, we could take it offline as well.
No, yeah, it definitely has been, man. It's such a, first of all, thank you for that. And thank you for all the kudos, man. I'm like a more guy, so I love that kind of stuff. But
Hyping you up.
yeah, dude, no, but it's definitely, the research is trending more towards that. And with more physical therapists, getting into like performance-based physical therapy, and like I started my clinic was originally in a CrossFit gym. And so you're working with CrossFit athletes, and we're working with endurance athletes and runners and stuff like this. And like, so we're using what we got, and we're trying to load these people up and get them ready. So I think that like the old school model of just like bands and ankle weights is slowly starting to go by the wayside. And as PTs are moving more into this like performance, or orthopedic PTs are moving more into this performance model, where we're working more with like an active population and kind of trying to give almost like a wellness type add to it, you're really starting to see the loading process really people are getting loaded a lot more, which is great.
Yeah,
I love that.
Very cool. Yeah, I walk into foot doctors and it's just full of like very old patients who have foot, and it's you're like, oh, I don't think I fit this mold. Like, I think my injury is a little different than theirs, and that's okay. Like, they might be dealing with forms of arthritis or whatever it may be, and you're going to see the same doctor. And I just think that's just problematic at its core. And the easy fix is always a cortisone shot, which doesn't always fix it. So, or never fixes it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like around here in Louisiana, the urgent care, like I guess the formula is X-ray, cortisone, muscle relaxer. Like, that's like what they give people. It's like they like tell me like, do I need to go to urgent care? I'm like, I'll tell you what they'll give you. It's these three things, right? But yeah, no, it's cool. And even like, I mean, even the research out there with like osteoporosis, osteopenia in older folks. Like, my wife did a course called Modern Management of the Older Adult, and they're like having older people squat and deadlift, because I mean, you have to like get on and off the toilet. You have to pick up your Amazon packages every other day. Yeah, you have to do things around the house, right? And it's like, it doesn't make sense to tell people not to squat. It doesn't make sense to tell people not to lift weights. There's a whole thing of it, and she's also like a pelvic health specialist too. That's like her other thing. And she's like, these women, they tell them not to lift 10 pounds with their baby's 12 pounds. Like, what are they supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. So it's like, it's all of these like loading, weight training, not being scared of the weight room is the new thing. And it's just been such a blessing to see that. It's so great.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
If it's okay, I have a comment on the steroid shot too. I was just in internal medicine residency, and we deal with a lot of like arthritis from older folks coming in. And so even like the older folks that I would see who are just coming in for like osteoarthritis, I tell them that like the steroid shot can help, but just like you said, Alex, it's not going to fix the problem. It can provide like a little bit of period of like pain relief in order for you to kind of address the underlying issue, but it won't like eventually fix the problem. So don't ever say like, no, absolutely not to a steroid shot. But if you do have to get one, like also work to address the underlying issue. And then just like a public super thank you to Bo for helping me through some of my injuries. So definitely like hype him up and take him up on the offer.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate it. No, yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to steroid shots in certain situations. Like, we have people that like, they'll come in and they have like a hot disc or something like that and we could barely even move them. I'm like, this might be a good idea to go get some intervention here and get that rolling, you know. But
Yeah,
then,
for sure.
but yeah, but it's also like you said with understanding of like, yes, it's going to help us be able to move better and get you addressing the underlying causes of the thing. So yes, that's absolutely, I'm 100% with you on that for sure.
There are definitely doctors out there though that like we like to be able to fix things, and so we like to say like go get the steroid shot and it'll fix it, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, if only, man, that'd make life a lot easier. I feel like, you know,
It makes somebody really rich.
right, right. I say it all the time. I'm like, I don't know if I could fix you in one session. I don't know if I'd be really rich or really poor. Like, I don't know which one it would be. So it'd be, you know, it'd be crazy. But I wish I could. Honestly, I really would. Awesome.
Well, thank you all very much for coming out tonight. Next week, our topic will be about how to lose weight while maintaining training load with Coach Wade and a couple others. So we'll be excited to have you out again and hope you all have a great week. Thanks,
Thanks.
Bo.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.